Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, um, viewers from across the globe and from whatever countries you are watching from. My name remains Bola Matthew Akimbino. Today, I would like to briefly discuss about business of today and the current COVID-19 pandemic, how COVID-19 pandemic have affected businesses and what businesses are still struggling to do in the midst of all this pandemic. Currently, of course, we know that some businesses have collapsed. There is no doubt about it across the globe. Some businesses were struggling while some people are planning to venture into their own business. It is always a difficult task, if you ask me, to start own small business in any given environment. However, it is much more tasking to venture into a business in a more severe and tough economy. We all know and agree that we are going through a severe and a tough economy. Wherever you find yourself, in Europe, in America, in Africa, Middle East, no continent, no country is exempted. And in other words, this is not peculiar to countries in Africa as alone, but spread across the entire world. Those who do not have a generous idea about how economic works or affect businesses will have learned a little in the past 1 year due to the recent COVID-19 pandemic. Just when the entire world was considering how to address climate change due to global warming with all the attendant economic consequences, and just when the businesses were looking at ways to creatively involved in the fourth industrial revolution arena, COVID-19 pandemic added a more dangerous dimension that makes businesses look dead, with just few of these businesses that are technologically inclined to the advantage. All of these trigger economic recession or economic doom in most countries of the world. It goes without saying that a recession can be a very challenging period. And indeed, we are in a very challenging period as individuals or as organizations or businesses. Recession happens to be part of the consequences expected in such a time as this. People lose their jobs with the total loss of purchasing power. Those with savings before now must have exhausted their supposedly savings. And those who still remain in paid jobs are scared of not losing their job if the current situation goes beyond this level. Likewise, we all notice that companies are cutting back spending. Many small businesses slump down, while some have gone into extinction or total collapse. Government tries to prioritize their spending to areas that need more attention, like the health of their citizenry. Everything does not seem to be tough. They are indeed tough. Again, everything does not seem to be tough. They are actually tough. Government in countries, especially those in the third world, will have borrowed beyond what they can easily pay back. Nevertheless, this situation will make the lenders organizations such as the IMF, the World Bank, to become more buoyant when the borrowing nations start paying back at the expense of the survival of their citizenry. As we speak, the European Union suffers double deep economic recession with GDP at 0.6% in the first 3 months of the year 2021 as pandemic impact continues. talk less of African countries' economy. Barclays recently predicts biggest economic boom since 1948, which means despite what has happened, there is this forecast that there will be economic boom, you know. But the point is, when is it going to happen? Is it going to be immediate? Is it going to be very soon? Nobody knows, but that was their prediction. This simply raises hope for recovery, but it's not going to happen immediately, not happen without proactive strategy and corresponding action. In summary, all around the world today, people get ill of COVID-19 pandemic and die. Schools were closed down. The healthcare systems become stressed out. People or workers lose their jobs. Many companies, as we all know, becomes bankrupt. Stock markets were not left out, and countries have to overspend for bailouts. Many countries are now bailing their states, their provinces, they are bailing them out because nothing is happening. And for everyone, whether directly hurt or not, COVID-19 shakes up our physique, while it also activates fears and uncertainties in the generality of the people. All of these painted a bleak future for the people in their respective countries. Nevertheless, there were opportunities for the generalities of the people during this pandemic. We are not talking about those technologically based organizations such as ICT, logistic, or healthcare related businesses that were handled by big businesses. We are talking about, in generally, there were opportunities for the generality of the people. And those are the things we want to point out to you and I. What are these opportunities that avail us in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic? One of the greatest opportunities that we don't seem to notice is the use of our time. I can clearly state here that during this pandemic, the use of our time is restored. Most of the time, people engage in non-productive activities that involved unnecessary spending. Don't forget that cost reduction, in whatever form, in whatever way, is a form of savings too. Therefore, people can engage their time in more productive times or in more productive activities during this COVID-19. In the process, some get to work on ideas that fetch them new streams of income. So, my question to you, if the use of time is an opportunity for you because it is restored, now you know that there are situations or there are activities that you spend or you spend your times, handling, or activities that you pay your attention to that does not really yield you anything. Now you know that you can look at those time and then make it more productive. So the question is, why don't you make use of your time productively at this time? Why don't you make use of your time productively in this situation? Why don't you make use of your time during this COVID-19 pandemic? This is one of the lessons that we learned in the process, and this is one of the opportunities that was not noticed but has become an issue that has to be addressed. Secondly, most businesses or workers find it difficult to review their activities for better results because you don't have time to look through your business system, your business process, your business practices. No time to review, to evaluate, to see why are you achieving? Why are you not achieving? What is the gap between your plan and your result? Because we keep on doing it as long as customers are coming, people are paying for goods or services. We don't really understand that we need to take a pause and then review our process, review our practices to yield a much more better result. In other words, the opportunities created by COVID-19 prompt the need for assessment and reassessment of our own job process, as a worker, that is if you're working in an organization, or business process as a businessman with a view to possibly reduce cost of doing business, even though you might be grappling with customers' traffic for patronage. But it is important that we pay attention to assessing our business process, assessing our business practices to see which area we need to improve upon, which gap do we need to fill so that our business can yield much more better results. Therefore, your organization system, your business processes and practices can be evaluated because you have the time to check and then to see what could be done to enhance either the performances of your workers and then of course to promote your business growth. Many people look at the downside or dark side of business. In a situation like this, we keep on complaining. We don't try to find out what are the opportunities that avail us in this same situation. So instead of taking stock of our businesses by doing a thorough self-reflection and business re-engineering if need be, we keep on complaining. Complaint will not solve our problem. Complaints will not answer our questions. Complaints will not fill the gap in our business. So that needs to be clear. And we also find out that in this same situation, generally, the mode of working was affected as people were still being paid. Meaning, mode of working was affected as people were made to work from home while their salaries are still being paid. Before now, we all believe, or let's say majority of us felt, if we don't have an office or a place where we can put tables and chairs, we can't work. Whereas we can work at home. So those of us who do not see it from that perspective, or who do not understand that we can work anywhere and still transact our business, now we know because of the lesson that we've learned during this pandemic period. And we also find out that the lifestyle of the people, keeps changing. Or will I say, the changing of lifestyles of people are noticed, both at homes and among friends. Unlike before, where we just while away the time, go out and drink and wine without thinking of how do we ensure that our businesses does more better. So, unnecessary social gatherings or friendskeeping got reduced during the pandemic, which is positive, which is good. So you have more time to concentrate on your business. There are some people who are able to learn things that they couldn't do before. Some learn cooking because they were used to eating outside. And when you eat outside, of course, you pay more because it's easy. Just dish out the money, get the food, eat, and then you go. But this time around, we learn to cook and eat at home when they have never practiced it before. So having time with family members at home was another great opportunities for family bonds. Most often we go out right early in the morning, come back late in the evening, go out early in the morning, and we don't get to see our family. Maybe only weekends, only Saturday or Sunday. So one of the lessons here was that time is important also for family to get bonded together. At this stage, I therefore advise you to carry out a thorough evaluation of all that you do as a person and also in your business to better navigate your compass for a greater achievement. This other part that I'm going to talk about is also key because due to low business patronage, we discover that end users enjoys cheaper prices on certain products or services for a period of time. You have stocks of raw materials, customers are not forthcoming, you only store them in your warehouse, and the question is, if I find a buyer, will it not be better for me to sell it at a cheaper price than to lose it all, especially if the products or the materials are perishable items? So those who need it to do their own production, their own little scale, can access these products or this material at much cheaper price, because the owner prefer to sell it at cheaper price than to allow it to get spoiled. So there were people who accessed this opportunity during this pandemic, and which of course is good for them. The seller will prefer to dispose their goods because they could no longer afford to keep their inventory in the rental shops. So we witnessed that among some businesses across the globe, even where we are living. So why don't you take advantage of this task of reevaluation to better your stake in business? We also discover that, of course, when we were working in the office, we have to go through a lot of bureaucracy. Workers, staff could not, come out with better idea or their own idea that could be better off for the businesses that they are working for. But because of bureaucracy, sometimes we place a lead on our innovation. We place a lead on our creativity. But guess what? The breaking of bureaucracy and rigid procedures that hinder speed of delivery and open innovations among workers was, in a way, turned the opposite side. The breaking, of course, promotes in-time service delivery because every bureaucracy had been removed or was removed, and workers, of course, were allowed to come out with their best idea on how to ensure that they still carried out their task for the benefit or for the benefit of the organization. So we also experienced that most of the restaurants also decide to adopt online services. Schooling also adopted learning services through online. So all these online services were introduced, either for service delivery or product delivery or for learning process. These are opportunities that some were able to tap into during this COVID-19 pandemic. And with the use of online tools as well, meetings were more engaging without distractions and unnecessary activities. In the same vein, spending for food during meetings, especially when you're having board meetings, of course, was not even drastically removed now, was no longer in existence. Meeting is meeting. So everybody's attention is on the agenda of the meeting. In some occasions, you go for a board meeting, you spend 30 minutes or maybe 1 hour for a meeting, you spend 2 hours for eating. You begin to ask yourself, is the board meeting meant for eating or for meetings? Is it for eating or to discuss on agendas that will improve our businesses, which will lead to business growth? So those expenses were no longer in existence. If you're conducting Zoom meeting, you can't be eating food, in Zoom meeting. So you pay your attention to the business of the day. So these are also part of the lessons that we learned during the pandemic. One other major factor, which is the final I'm going to talk about today, is the fact that a clean environment due to industrial activities that generates one waste, greenhouse gases, air pollutions, land pollutions, water pollutions were noticed during the lockdown. The air was clean, environment becomes more neater because there was less activities, by you and I. Human activities was drastically reduced, and then the nature benefited from it. This, of course, for example, we talk about the industrial pollutions. So when companies close down, no running of companies, no emission of gases. Even though that might be a sad news to the workers because you are no longer to work to earn a living, but the nature benefited from it. And like I said, this might not pose good news for workers in the companies that generate all of these pollutions, but good in cleaning the environment to reduce global warming. The shutdown, for example, of countries' economy in a short time is favorable to nature. The 2015 Paris Agreement aims to keep global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius as targeted by 2100, that is in 2100. To this end, recently, the 40 World Leaders Meeting initiated by the President of the United States of America, President Joe Biden, the leaders made a pledge to reduce their emissions by nationally determined contributions. They all gave their own target, what they intend to achieve, so as to reduce emission. US, for example, decided to cut emission by 50 to 52%, which is half below 2005. Japan decided to cut its own emission by 46% below 2013 level. UK decided to cut emission by 46% below 2030, by 2030 rather. South Korea decided to end public purchase of coals because they believe that coals, generates more, carbons. So their own way of reducing is to ensure that they end the public purchase of coals. In case of China, they said they were going to protect environment, and the only way to do that is to protect productivity. So by 2060, China hope for carbon neutrality. That is their aim. In South Africa, they decided that by 2030 they're going to reduce carbon by 26%. But they expect, to see results from 2025. So what am I saying? I'm talking about a cleaning environment. So the question is, if countries are coming out to say this is what we want to do, definitely it will involve a lot. It will engage organizations, it will engage businesses, it will engage the government themselves, in such a way that they will sit down to look at what role should we play to reduce, emissions, either air pollutions, either water pollutions, or talking about land pollutions. So the question to you as individual during this pandemic, or to corporate organization, is how do you build on this for you to support the cleaning environment, while at the same time making your gains in business? On a final note, my advice is that people and small business should endeavor to take advantage of this unnoticed opportunity. I call it unnoticed opportunity to generate business idea that could support your financial base. So today, in summary, is to say we are in big trouble. Big trouble posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Businesses are collapsing, some are struggling. Government spending, of course, they have to prioritize their spending more on healthcare system. Companies are cutting spending too, just because of the situation that we find ourselves in. For the fact that businesses are not easy to go by or to manage in this kind of circumstance we find ourselves does not mean that business will totally stop. There are people who engage in business during this pandemic and they are making money. They are financially financially okay. While some of us are complaining, what should we do? Oh, we need help here and there. Some are busy looking for opportunities. And one of them, like I said, time. The use of your time. Use of time is restored and people take advantage of the use of their time and make it much more productive. And because of this, it enables them to access fund. When I say fund, that is to have financial gain in the process of using their time, engaging themselves, engaging their time for a more productive work. You must sit down to evaluate yourself, to evaluate your business, to see where there is gap and where do you need to fill the gap. Is there any questions that requires answer? Is there any problems that requires solutions? You need to see that. Do assessment and reassessment of your business practices, of your business process, and then put the little resources you have together, channel it into it, and make sure you monitor it until you get to a point where you will say, I think the pandemic that we have just gone through, it is not to my disadvantage. Rather, it is to my advantage. Thank you, and God bless you.